welcome to Sarah's Stamping Retreat. Today we're going to be focusing on creating some really cool backgrounds for our cards, and we're going to be using the new Propagation Garden collection from Spellbinders to create them. So the elements of this that we're going to use today are this gorgeous Propagated Plants die set, which combines really nice with this laboratory glassware set. And I like that both can be used on their own or together. And then we've got this really nice coordinating embossing folder. We've got this tropical leaves, better press plate and die set. And then I think these sentiments just really set it off. You've got some really cute ones in there, like let's root for each other and watch each other grow. You grow, girl. Let's grow old together. Believe in yourself. But then you've also got your happy birthday, thinking of you, that kind of thing. And I like that there's dies to cut those out as well. So as I said, we're going to be focusing on creating some really fun backgrounds on today's cards. So for this one, I've got all these jars that I've created from that laboratory glassware set. You can see on each of these, I've got a pale blue for the glass, a slightly darker blue for the water, so you get dies to cut that out as well. And then this slightly greyish one to kind of be the bottom of the jar. So you can see that each of these has the jar itself, this piece cuts out this, and it also cuts out that top bit in case you just wanted something different on the top. And then we've also got these pieces which cut out the different bottoms. And then for some of them we've got these kind of measuring bits down the side as well. And I'm not going to do this today because I want mine to be like water, but you can see in the stamp set you also get this bubble stamp so that you can add extra things to that. And there's also this, you could stamp on your measures instead of having the dies if you wanted. So for this one, I've got a blue card blank that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Then I've got this grey one that measures 3 3/4 by 5. And then this pink piece is just 1/8 of an inch smaller than the grey. So I kind of want to use this as a focal element. So I'm going to pop this one up on foam pads. So I'm going to pop this here so I can see how much space that's going to take, so I can put it in a nice place. So I'm going to pop that there. And then all these extra ones I'm going to glue to create like a background from them. And then I'm going to cut off the excess. And then those pieces that I've cut off, I'm going to use again to fill in some of the gaps. And then I can just go again and cut off those extra little bits. So I want a long sentiment from this, so I'm going to use this Happiness Blooms here. So I'm going to heat emboss this with white embossing powder onto this dark grey cardstock. And then we've got this die, which I think is created to fit a lot of these sentiments. And I can just die cut that out. So we've got that cute sentiment that I'm going to put up on foam pads as well. And then I'm also going to pop some foam pads behind these leaves. Actually, before I do that, I nearly forgot, a lot of these come in 2 layers. So I've cut these in just a really slightly lighter shade as well. As you can see, this one is this one, and then this one die cuts this, which I've just cut in a very slightly lighter shade for a bit of contrast. And this is the Propagated Plants set. So all of the roots and the leaves that we're using today are from the Propagated Plant set, and then all of these bits are from the Glassware set. And they're both really big die sets as well. You know, you've got this piece that can go on there, but I might leave that one a darker green since it's kind of in the background. So yeah, I'm going to leave this part off. And then I'm going to glue the roots on. And I'm just popping a bit of glue behind the stems so that then they will go onto here, and then all these bits that we've popped foam pads behind can glue onto here. And so then I'm going to pop glue on the back of this, and I'll add that onto the grey layer. And then I'll pop some foam pads behind this too. And then I'm just going to add a few clear gems around. So then there's that card done. So then for my next card, I'm going to grab my brayer, I'm going to ink it up with some grey ink, and then I'm going to cover the front of my embossing folder with it, and you can tell it's the front because it's the one that has the Spellbinders logo on it. And then I'm going to put this piece of really pale pink cardstock in it. So I like to put it on the side I've not inked and then fold it over. And you can see we've got this really cool, gorgeous, soft pink and grey embossed panel. So then for the leaves on this one, I've got this shape of glassware this time. And the nice thing is, because you've got all the different shapes, you can kind of create a lot of different cards, or like we did in the last one card with multiple pieces of glassware with like one pass through the machine, because you can just put them all through at once. So then this one has the leaves, and then I'm just doing like I did with the other one. I'm layering some of the more detailed pieces on top. I'm using the same colours as the other one, so we've got a darker green with a lighter green on top. And then I think they look really cool like that, but then there's also these bits that you can put over the top as well if you want to. So I've just cut these pieces in the same slightly darker colour as I did the stems. So I think that looks really nice with that additional dimension then. So then I've cut a 2 by 4¼ inch piece of this pink cardstock, and I'm just going to kind of layer up my card front so that I can see where I want everything, so I can see where I want my sentiment. So this is how my card front's going to look. So I might just use this happy birthday on this one, and I absolutely adore these fonts. So I'm just going to go in on the back and see what this smoky slate looks like on this cardstock, because I want to make sure that my sentiment's dark enough but not too dark. I think that's maybe a bit too light. So let's try this basic grey. I think that's probably the right tone. Just need to make sure I stamp it properly. So let's glue this all together. So this piece of the panel that I created is 3½ by 4¼ inches. So I've obviously got loads of that panel left because I made a 5½ by 8½ inch panel, so I can use that on other cards. And then this 2 by 4¼ inch panel will go at the bottom. And then I'm going to add this piece of grey across here. And then I'll just snip the edges off that. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to that stem. And then I'm going to add some foam pads to the back. So I think that's a really nice simple way of creating a really interesting background. So then for my next card, I'm going to create another 4¼ by 5½ inch card. So I've got this grey panel, and I'm going to use the dies from this pack to cut out sections from this grey panel. So basically there's going to be apertures in it. So then I'm going to take those in place. Then I'm going to die cut them. So then we can remove all these pieces. So then I'm going to grab my better press, and then I'm going to, this is really important, turn this over in my better press. I'm going to line it up with that A2 line, and then I'm going to line up these leaves inside those apertures. And the reason you have to turn this over is because obviously this is the back side of the letterpress plates. When it presses, the image will come out the other way. Then I can take this off, and then I'm going to grab my better press ink and I'm going to ink these up. I've just knocked this one, so I need to just pop this over. And the other thing I actually do before I ink them up so that the ink doesn't dry is just tape this onto here. And then I'll pop that through my letterpress. So then I've got this beautiful impression, and this will fit really nicely around those edges. And I could leave it like that, but I am going to colour the leaves in green. I'm going to use my Carin markers to do that. So now I've got these coloured. You can see that looks really pretty against this background. You can see I made a mistake here, but it's okay because this is going to cover it. So I'm going to add some foam strips behind here. So I'm going to use this Thanks for Helping Me Grow sentiment. So then I've just got a piece of that same cardstock to back this with. So I'll just pop some glue on the back there. And then I'm going to pop these behind here. And then I can just grab a card base and pop that on. And then there's that card done. And I think with this card, if you haven't got a better press or you haven't got those better press plates, then you can always use just any stamps with coordinating dies you've got in your collection. Or you could use the leaves from the propagated plants and die cut them out of here, and then use that as a guide to put kind of green die cuts on the sheet below and get a very similar look. Okay, so then for this next card, I've got some pink cardstock, and I'm just going to kind of draw roughly around where my bottle's going to go. And I'm just going to do that with a pencil. It doesn't need to be particularly accurate. We're going to rub it out afterwards. It's just an idea. So then I can move those to one side. And then I want to make a background with all of these sentiments. I kind of want all the kind of grow ones. I want to kind of mix up the sentiments a little bit, and I'm just placing them around the outline. So then I'm going to pick that up on my plate, and then I'm going to ink this up with this pale grey ink. And I'm going to clean those stamps, and then I'm going to take them off and rearrange them around the top. So then we can erase our flowers. And I'm going to grab our grey cardstock. You can see it's the same piece I used earlier. And I'm going to use this. It takes a long time to grow an old friend, because I think that's a cute sentiment. And this die just fits around there, so I'm going to cut that out with that die. So then I can just make up my little jar. So I'm just putting the water in it, and you just leave like a little border around the outside that's basically the glass. And then I've got this bit that's like the bottom of the jar. So then I'm going to grab this just green ink, And I'm just going to add on just a little bit of extra dimension with that. Just gives it a bit of added interest. So then I'm going to add on my roots. I'm going to add some glue just in the bottom of here. Okay, so then I've cut this down a bit. So I've got a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of the pink cardstock for the front of my card. Then I've cut this grey piece down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then I've cut this piece that we printed down to 1/8 of an inch smaller than that and just pop these bits up on foam pads. So I love the way that that turned out. So then for my final card, I'm going to add some of this Wow embossing ink, and this is the mixed media embossing brush. And I've only just got this, but I think it's a really nice way of adding the embossing ink to your block without wasting it. So I'm going to ink up my brayer with that. You can see that's nice and glossy. And then I'm going to ink up my embossing folder, and I'm inking up that front piece again. And I'm going to create a full panel, even though I'm not going to use it all, just because it's nice to show you, and then I can use the rest on a different card. So then I've got an 8 1/2 by 5 1/2 piece of pink cardstock, and I'm just going to add that onto the dry side of my embossing folder. And then when I get it to my machine, I can then fold it over and not have this kind of like slip and smudge around. And so you can see I actually didn't even clean off the embossing folder from the last technique we did with the grey ink. I didn't think there'd be as much ink left on it, but that actually looks really pretty as it is with that second generation ink. But we're going to add some embossing powder onto that. So I've got the Wow Polished Silver Superfine embossing powder. So you can see I obviously didn't ink up that side of the embossing folder enough, but that's the advantage of having a panel that's bigger than we need it. We've still got plenty of room that was inked enough. And also, if you needed the whole panel and it turns out a bit like this, then you can heat it with the heat tool, go into those areas with an embossing pen, then reheat emboss those areas. Then look how shiny and beautiful that is now. So then I'm going to heat emboss a sentiment again for this one. So I'm going to use that It Takes a Long Time to Grow an Old Friend again. I'm going to do that in white embossing powder again. So I've trimmed that to 3 1/4 inches wide. So then I've got my panel, which I have cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm going to add some glue to the back of that. It's like the disco card, it's so shiny. And then I've cut this piece of grey cardstock down to 3 1/4 by 4 1/2 inches. And then this pink piece that I'm sticking onto it is 1/8 of an inch smaller, so you just get that really fine border around the outside. So then I've got these two pieces, and then I'm just going to glue these lighter leaves to this leafy plant. And so then I'll glue that onto this one. And then I've got these little bits that I can glue just onto these bamboo. And then I can glue those into this piece of glassware. So then what I'm going to do is I've cut this sentiment down to 3 1/4 inches so that it fits across here. So I'm going to pop that up on some foam pads. And then I'm going to glue that across there. And then I'm going to pop foam pads onto the back of both of these. And actually I think I'm going to pop this onto here before I glue those on so that I can see what it looks like on the card all together. I'm just going to place that so that I know where it's going. And then I'll just chop that little bit off there so it doesn't overhang the edge. And then I can add that onto there. So then that's that card finished. I think it looks really cute. So now I've got all 5 of today's cards. I'd love for you to let me know which is your favourite. Please do let me know in the comments below. So I think we've made some really fun backgrounds today. I hope you try some of the techniques that we've used. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got a new video available. All of the products that I've used for today's cards are listed in the description below, and there's also a link there to my blog where you can find a picture supply list if that helps you find what you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.